We're going over the OpenAI Real-Time API. Here we have the OpenAI Real-Time Console application, which we've tested in the last video. Check it out if you haven't seen that just yet. Phenomenal, phenomenal. A complete game changer, especially because we can use audio to audio, which will allow us to have less latency because we are skipping this conversion step of text to audio and then audio to text. We're going to take a deep dive into the code. Let's get started. Here, within the relay.js folder, we're utilizing an amazing library that was offered to us called @OpenAI/Realtime API Beta. Now, this is a package that was released by OpenAI, and it's going to allow us to do things, it looks like, a little bit easier. Here, we're just importing a WebSocket, which is normal. Now, the beautiful thing is this is all done in one class. So let's go through this class, shall we? Here, we're creating a constructor. That constructor is going to save your API key. It's going to create a weak map, which will allow us to create key value references. But the good thing is this will only exist for as long as the actual sockets exist. So it's a great way of creating key value pairs as list without having any of the garbage sort of spill over. Now, the only thing is it's not going to create exact copies of the keys so that you can almost like retrieve the keys and do something with them. No, you're just literally using the key as a way to use a get method and retrieve the value. But essentially, another good thing is you can utilize the weak map with keys that aren't primitive, right? We can use a function as a key. We can use a different weak map as a key. It's amazing. So here we're utilizing that for our sockets. This is where we're going to actually instantiate our socket. Here we're using WSS, which we've set up from the library WS, which stands for WebSocket. Here, this is a secure WebSocket. Amazing. So now that we're through with the constructor, we have our listen method. Now, this listen method is going to be responsible for taking a port, utilizing that port to start the server, which is the WebSocket server, and then we're going to begin a connection. So when we receive a connection from a client, we're going to go ahead and instantiate this .connection.bind this. So we're literally taking the entire class or object that gets instantiated and putting it into this connection using the bind method. So super, super cool. Now we also have this .log, which is telling us where we're listening on the port. Here we have connection handler. So connection handler is going to allow us to take in a WebSocket, take in a request. We're going to make sure that the request has a URL. If it doesn't have a URL, we're going to close the connection immediately. Once we have the connection, we're keeping the socket, the WebSocket, and whichever information came from the request temporarily during that connection. Because remember, that connection is stateful, so it has to remain open and interactive as long as the WebSocket's open. Here, we're creating a new URL. The URL is going to be the request header. The request header will let us know where the request came from so that we can remain on the same host. Here, because we've used the new URL native object, or rather native method, we can get the path name. Obviously, we could have destructured this, but we can also set it to this value. And we're going to say if there is a path name is not the root, then we want to say invalid path name and close connection again. So this here, as well as this here, are ways for us to handle errors in case something is wrong before we just connect to anybody. And it actually gives you the first 3 elements in the string, essentially, of the API key. We're going to instantiate a client by using the new real-time client that we imported from the OpenAI Real-Time API beta library. We're going to give it the API key, which is awesome because we actually have that available to us due to the constructor. We're going to pass that in, and now we have access to the real-time client. This allows methods like real-time. We're going to get this as some type of server event. We're going to take that event and we're going to relay that to the client. So this event is going to have a type. Then we're going to console.log this information here. Then we're going to send this information to the WebSocket, and it has to stringify the event since we're sending it through a server connection. Here, we're setting up the client to respond to the close event. We're just going to close the connection so that we don't have any memory leaks. Here we see commented out, relay browser event, OpenAI Real-Time API event. We need to queue data waiting for the OpenAI connection. So message queue, message handler. Here's a function. We're using this function to essentially take in data. That data, we're assuming it's going to be a message. Now it's going to create an event by parsing the message that we received. Let's say we received a message to the server connection. Well, we have to make sure that we turn it into a JavaScript object since it may be coming in as JSON. This is going to console.log the event as we've done previously over here, just so that we know what type of event happened. Then we're going to utilize client.realTimeSend to send the event type as well as the event utilizing this method. Amazing. We're going to catch any errors that happen during this process. The next step is when we receive a message, or when the WebSocket receives a message, the one that we instantiated, we're going to take that data, we're going to see if the client is connected, so that real-time client that we created here, which is a different WebSocket. And then we're going to push the data, essentially, which should be JSON data, to that queue, which is awesome. Or else we're going to handle this message utilizing, what's happening here is, in case our client's not connected, so it's another case of error handling, we're going to go ahead and, in case the client's not connected, we're going to go ahead and take this message that we just received on the WebSocket. This way we're not losing messages in case something cuts off abruptly. We're going to take that and put that in the message queue array that we established here. If we are connected, then we just want to handle that message utilizing method handler. Just going to take that message, it's going to turn into a JavaScript object from JSON. It's going to console.log this information, and then it's going to send this to the instantiation of the real-time library that we have received from OpenAI. Here, it's just saying that if we do close, if the WebSocket receives a close event, then we're just going to disconnect the client that we instantiated from the real-time API. Here, we're going to try and connect. Here, we're going to catch any errors. And if there is an error, we're going to close that connection so there are no leaks. Here, we're going to just log again as we normally have been doing. And we're going to see if there's anything in the message queue, which we established over here. If there is anything there, then we want to make sure that we're essentially adding this to message handler and also taking it out the queue, which is awesome, so that we don't have the message queue sort of fill up there, even though we've essentially sent the message to the AI. Here, we're logging all of the arguments, and essentially it's just saying anytime anything comes in, the way that we're able to utilize this is any information that comes in, we're just going to use this method here, console log, real-time relay, and then the arguments. So really, really clean instantiation here. Now, where do we use it? Okay, well, I'm going to explain to you where we use it.